Toxic masculinity.
Scientific American Republican calls on Cuomo to resign for ignoring the science.
Is that the next story? Are you sure?
That's the next story.
She and I have different ideas about what the next story is supposed to be, but I'll go with it. There's nothing about Texas schools.
You tell me to remove that one.
No, I did not tell you to remove that one.
You said remove 3 and
That one was 5.
you said me to remove 3 and 5.
4.
That was the 4 just now.
Okay, well, that's
Did you
wrong.
see your list?
That's wrong. That's wrong. Okay, well let's do the Cuomo one, shall we? And then, but we got to do the Texas school one, so you got to do that next.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So this one here is a Scientific American op-ed calls on Cuomo to resign for ignoring the science on COVID-19. Now, there's a couple things here. So the guy that wrote this op-ed, he's not a scientist. He's a reporter. He's a journalist. And he's pissed off because he has a family member that died because of what Cuomo did, because of, Cuomo's like nursing home thing. But here's the thing. I like Scientific American magazine, but it's very left-wing, right? All these science magazines are National Geographic, all these science magazines. And it's really upsetting to me because when I was a little boy, I loved science, right? I had my little dinosaurs. I loved all that stuff. And in fact, I aced basically all my science classes, physics, chemistry, everything. Every science class I would ace very easily. I was very good at science, and I loved science. I loved the idea of potentially being an astronaut, all that kind of stuff. And I might have gone into the sciences. In fact, my first major in college was physics, and I switched out of it. But I love that stuff. I love physics. I love that kind of stuff. But the thing is, the scientific community is very much an atheist stronghold. A lot of atheists, and I don't mean atheists like people who are sort of passively atheists. There are obviously a lot of passive atheists. Like I have a good friend who's a prominent scientist. He's an atheist. He's not like an aggressive atheist. But I'm talking about these guys who are like evangelical atheists, right? They're very sort of like embittered about Christianity. They hate Christians. They think of Christians as stupid, believing in sort of like the mythology of their ancestors. And, they look down on people who believe in God and who have that kind of traditional morality. And so they tend to vote for Democrats, and they tend to be very hostile against traditional values, Christians, conservative, Republicans. And so the scientific community has become a very polarized place, a place that's very hostile to conservatism. And so that's actually the only reason I did not pursue science as a field of study. I would have done so as a young man. And the thing is, like, is the world a better place? Would the world have been a better place had I become a scientist? Who knows? Maybe. But forget about me. I'm just an example of like how many young men wanted to go into the science field, some kind of science field, and felt in the same way I did, like, well, I can't go into it because the people in this field, they reject people like me. They don't accept people like me.
You're too handsome?
Thank you, darling. Yeah, I mean, scientists they can be very cruel and very exclusive. And if they don't fit the mold of what they like, if you don't fit the mold of what they like, then you become excluded. You become somebody. And I didn't want to be in that kind of a business, right? So what did I do? I went to Hollywood. 1,000 times worse. But when I was a kid, I actually foolishly thought, when I say kid, I mean 17, 18, 19, whatever. I foolishly thought that if you're a writer, it didn't really matter what your politics were, it just mattered how good of a writer you were. Little did I know writing is like the hardest thing to break into in Hollywood unless you know somebody, unless your dad's a major director or something like that. But let's see. Let's read some of this stuff here. Okay, so this guy has said there is only one ethical option. Andrew Cuomo should resign as governor of New York and make room for someone with a command of and respect for the scientific knowledge necessary to lead the nation's fourth largest state, Thrasher wrote. Thrasher is, of course, the journalist who wrote this op-ed. He's written, if he will not go voluntarily, he needs to be pressured into leaving. He said researchers found that if Cuomo had granted New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio's request for a lockdown earlier in the pandemic, as many as 17,000 fewer Big Apple residents would have died from the virus. And I don't know about that because I don't think the lockdowns worked. In fact,
Didn't work.
I don't think they worked at all. So I think this guy's actually wrong. However, because that wasn't really what Cuomo did wrong. There was a lot of other stuff. That was just one of many decisions that Cuomo made before the pandemic and in its first few months that resulted in the needless death of New Yorkers that he was sworn to protect. Now, I'd agree with that. I do think that there were a lot of other mistakes that were made. Oh, sorry, guys. I forgot to switch back to this. Okay, so let's see here. New York State, he noted, has reduced its hospital capacity by roughly 20,000 beds over the past 20 years. Cuomo has been governor for half that time, Thrasher noted. A big reason why there was such a shortage of beds when he was on TV every day, wringing his hands about not having enough ventilators, was because he oversaw the dissemination of the state's hospitals and stripped the system so close to the bone, it predictably couldn't handle a pandemic. Yeah, so, I mean, I disagree with this guy a little bit, all right? The truth is that Trump actually sent a bunch of beds. He set things up so that Cuomo could have enough beds, hospital beds, for coronavirus patients. But for whatever reason, Cuomo sent them into the nursing homes anyway. I still don't really understand.
Because they don't want to take any help from Trump administration.
I don't think that was it.
They're so selfish.
I'm not sure why he did it, because he did it. He did eventually say, like, "Oh, this is really great. Trump really helped us out here," and then he did what?
For $20.
Oh, you want to read something?
Yeah.
All right, read something to us.
I think you better to read because I don't know how to pronounce.
All right, let me check it
name.
out. Hold on, I gotta switch over to the thing. Okay, there we go. All right, this is from D. Grissom. I don't know how to pronounce your name, but I think it's Grissom. I think so. Let's see here. Took me a minute to find this channel. Wonder why. Love your work, Mr. Reagan. Your co-host is an absolute delight. Thank you, D. Grissom. I agree with you. Although she doesn't like me that much. She she beat me earlier today.
I did. That's true.
Yes. But it's okay. I survived. We're working through our marital problems, which is basically. Well, no, we don't really have any. We don't have any problems. We're good. It's quite nice. I think actually it is. I was trying to come up with a joke, but it didn't really work. All right. I look. The point of this article, the reason that we're talking about it, the Scientific American article, is that even the left is basically saying, enough is enough. Cuomo, you're terrible. And the thing is, like, people are saying, oh, he's not going to get into any trouble for the COVID thing because the left wants to support him there and blame Trump for everything. And so they're avoiding that. And they just want to talk about this, this thing about the sexual harassment scandal and stuff like that. But I think this is proof that that's not actually true. There are leftists who definitely do think that he screwed up with the COVID thing. I think a lot of these leftists realize he screwed up with the COVID thing. They don't know how to deal with it because they want to still blame Trump. They don't want to blame Cuomo for that, especially after praising him for like a whole year. And so they're kind of shifting their attention to the sexual harassment thing in order to condemn him about something else, so they don't have to admit that they were wrong earlier about praising him about COVID. But I don't know, like, a lot of people, I posted earlier today that like Cuomo's effed because they actually have found now that his aides actually doctored documents to make it look like there were fewer deaths than there were. And a lot of people made a good point on Twitter, which was that, well, actually, because the left wants to protect him so much, nothing will ever happen to Cuomo. But what I meant was, when I said he's effed, what I really meant was politically. I didn't mean like he was going to prison or anything. But I think a lot of conservatives want to see him go to prison. I don't think that's happening. But here's the real thing that I think is quite a shame about this whole story, is that not only is nothing going to happen to Cuomo in terms of the judicial system, he's never going to be arrested, he's never going to go to prison, nothing like that. The worst part is that, yes, Cuomo's career is over in politics, but Cuomo's career is just beginning in media. So, yes, Cuomo will probably never work in politics
again. Cuomo is the new Trump?
No. What I'm saying is, Andrew Cuomo, I give it about a 99% chance that within the next year, he's going to get a TV show on CNN. He'll have some kind of talk show
I thought they're gonna hate him
the Andrew Cuomo hour. Why would they hate him?
because he messed up.
There are tons of people at CNN that messed up. Basically, everybody that left the government, like the ex-chief of the CIA, Brennan, he works for CNN now. I think Strzok works for CNN. They all work for CNN now, right? CNN basically hires any disgraced leftist that is at all in the public consciousness. They bring him and they hire him. They hire them. The FBI director, what's his name? He got hired by CNN. They all get hired by CNN. So Cuomo will definitely get hired by CNN. Who knows what his job will be, but they're going to hire him. I guarantee it. I guarantee it. All right, shall we move on to the next story?
Okay. You said the story about Texas?
Yes, please.
Texas school under fire for Chivalry Day?
Chivalry Day.
Chivalry Day that had girls obey boys.
Obeying, girls have to obey boys. I love this. I love this. Toxic Masculinity. Weekdays, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific.